started. Good morning, everybody. Before I kind of dig into today's topic, just wanted to go over, if you haven't been here before, I just want to go over what the Senior Living Education Series is, and then introduce myself as well. So my name is Andy Allgreen. I'm the host and moderator of the Senior Living Education Series. A little bit about myself on the professional side is I'm a realtor full-time and a certified senior housing professional. We really enjoy helping older adults downsize into a smaller house or into senior living communities. Work with the Allgreen Legacy Group under Keller Williams. I live in Monroe, and I'm currently on city council down there, and then involved with the Gathering Place, which is a nonprofit senior and community center. So that's a little bit about myself, and then just because I like to show off my son, that's my family, and that's my wife Sydney and our son Mills. So that's a little bit about myself on the personal side as well. A little bit about what the Senior Living Education Series is, who we are, and just the overall mission behind it. We basically started these in January of 2025 because we were just having a lot of conversations with older adults, and there wasn't like a clear plan or path on like what exactly people should be doing or education. We were just doing research and stuff, and there's a lot of research as I'm am a dad now. It's like there's a lot of books on how to like become a dad, how to like start a business, X, Y, and Z. But there's not a lot of education around like how to age and when you get older, what things to kind of become educated about. So that was the main reason for starting it. We were currently running them at the Gathering Place in Monroe up until April of this year, and we moved here. So they're always on the first Thursday of every month at 10 a.m. And we go through a variety of topics and things like that. So it's always free to attend. I always like to say they're a little bit different than like your normal, like if you were to go to like a vendor fair type of event / seminar. Like we're not here to sell you anything. It's always educational. The panelists that we always choose are come from a place of education, basically. So that's a little bit about the education series. Another thing I like to touch on as well is we have education partners for the series, because basically putting on a free seminar for just people to attend, it costs money, so they help us keep the cost basically free, obviously, for everyone to come. The education partners essentially have the same heart that we do for seniors and older adults, just to provide just real-world, practical education things that you can do. Just to help things, to be able to help you make more confident decisions in the future. These are our current education partners. So we have Park Center, Hearthstone, Newton Village, and then Story Point Senior Living, which are all senior living communities, and then Home Instead, which is an in-home care company. They are always here prior to the event actually starting, and then they always stay after the event. So I always just encourage everyone, like they're here to just be a resource for you guys. They're not here selling anything. Like just go up, ask them any questions that you have about their senior living community, what they have to offer, or if you just have one-off questions for them that you think they might be able to answer. Like they're just here to be a resource for everyone. So that's a little bit about that. Couple other housekeeping items I did forget to mention. If you haven't been to the DMAC campus before, restrooms are out this door. Turn left, you'll see a sign, and then you'll turn left again. So that's where they are. Another thing, we have in January of 2026, we made these customized 3-ring binders. We were trying to do our best to put ourselves in your guys' shoes. So high level, it's just a binder that keeps everything organized. It lays out all 12 months of the seminar series, what the topics are, and things like that. And then it has a note sheet where you can take notes. And then another thing is we got feedback a couple months ago that's in from a couple, and they were like, "Hey, what happens if we miss a seminar? How can we get that information?" Basically, so twofold: we record the seminars every single month, and assuming technology and everything works correctly, it goes on our YouTube channel, and that's called Iowa Senior Living. So you can always go back and watch them later. And then secondly, we will always print out like basically a one-page sheet of the, like when you come to the next seminar, you'll have a one-page sheet of what happened today, and it's just high level what we covered, top main ideas and big ideas that we kind of talked about. So you should have a sheet in front of you of what we covered last month. So that's kind of the conversation there. And then there's yellow feedback forms in front of you as well. So I highly encourage everyone to fill those out. We read those, every single one of them. So if there's any feedback for ourselves that you think would make these seminars better, just feel free to write it down or have a conversation with myself or Nancy or someone that's kind of associated with the Senior Living Education Series. And we just want to try to make it a good experience for everybody. So that's that. Next item here. We obviously have our education partners. So this 2 weeks on Wednesday, June 17th at 9 a.m., we're doing a community tour of Park Center in Newton Village. They're both located in Newton, across the street from each other. So essentially the whole idea here is we will tour Newton or Park Center first. We'll start there at 9 a.m. Essentially, we'll have just a light breakfast, kind of see what they have to offer for food, essentially, and then tour the community, figure out like what amenities they have to offer, and then we'll look inside a couple different apartments that they have there. And then after that, we'll walk over from Park Center to Newton Village. It's just across the street, and do the same thing. We'll start out with more of the tour first, amenities, and then we'll do a light lunch after to kind of have a little like afternoon snack. So that will be the plan for that. And one of the reasons kind of why we like to do the Senior Living community tours is because it's just it's a practical thing that you can do right now. Because a lot of the times we have conversations with older adults, and I don't want to say all the time, but majority of the time it's kind of when you're in crisis mode, and this allows you to go in and tour these communities so you can kind of just see what they have to offer. There's no pressure. It's just, we're just going to tour it and, see what it's like and what they have to offer. So it's just a no pressure way to set up a tour. You'll be with a group of people who kind of have the same goals as you as well. So that's kind of the whole idea around that. If you want to be signed up for that, on the yellow note sheet, there's that kind of in the middle, that first box there, it says something along the lines of Senior Living Community Tour, June 17th. Check that box, and then just make sure your info's on the bottom of that sheet, and then we'll get you signed up for that, and we'll send email reminder and text and phone call reminders just so we don't forget. I always say I live on my calendar, so if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. So I would put it on your calendar as well. Yeah, that's kind of what we have going on. So I did also just want to give a quick series recap of where we've been and where we're headed for the Senior Living Education Series. So the past 3 months in March, April, and May, we've essentially been going through a downsizing series. So we did downsizing part 1 down in March, which was how to plan your downsizing journey with confidence. Basically, high level, it was just step 1, creating a plan. Step 2, communicating that plan to family and friends, because it's better to have those things written down and communicated with family, friends, or loved ones that might be help making the decision, so they kind of know what your wishes are there. Step 2 was how to build your team and tackle your stuff. So just figuring out the professionals that you might need around you to help you figure out the kind of direction you might need to go. And then tackling your stuff is, I always say, no matter how big or small your house is, if you've lived in it for a long time, you'll always find a way to fill it. So we just looked at practical ways on how to kind of get rid of items, donate items, sell items, and things like that. So that was part 2 in April, and then in May we did a downsizing part 3, which was how to settle in and start your new season well. That was from the perspective of I've already moved into I've already downsized into a smaller home or into a senior living community, and it's from the perspective of like what's next. So it was a good conversation, and kind of how to rebuild routines, how to make your new space feel like home, etc., things like that. So it was kind of 3 months and one picture there. So obviously today, what everybody is here for is our what every senior should know about legal planning. And this is kind of something that we've essentially been building towards. So I say this a lot. I'm probably going to repeat it almost every single time during these seminars, but I do mean it every single time. So like a lot of times we have conversations with older adults. They have a plan A in place, but they don't necessarily have a plan B or plan C if something were to happen. Typically, plan A is I want to stay in my home as long as possible, which is great, but it's like, what if something does happen? So everybody's here for a reason, and hopefully that's here to help you kind of build out what that plan B and or C could kind of look like. So obviously we're going to be talking about legal documents and those items. So yeah, with that, we'll just have our panelists come on up, and we will kind of dig into today's conversation regarding legal planning. So if you want to give them a round of applause, please. Yep, feel free to take a seat. So yeah, joining us today, we'll have obviously 3 different panelists, 3 different perspectives, just to kind of give us an idea of 3 different perspectives from 3 different kind of businesses, I guess. So yeah, with that, I'm going to actually have them go ahead and introduce themselves and just kind of give a quick just intro, who you are, what you do, etc. And sorry, one other thing I did want to say as well. So if you have questions, we will wait until the end. So if you have questions, feel free to write them down on your note sheet or feedback sheet or wherever you want to write them down. And then at the end, we'll do a quick Q&A, answer the questions. If your question doesn't get answered, the panelists are going to plan to stick around a little bit, so they'll be here to answer any specific questions and like that as well. So with that, I'll have Amy go ahead and start with the intro.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for letting us come today. My name is Amy Spores, and I'm the director of Wesley Life Hospice and Palliative Care. By trade, I was a medical social worker in the field for 15 years. So I worked primarily in hospice, where I would go to people's homes and sit bedside and help them navigate what decisions need to happen at end of life. So this is a really important conversation to not only plan, but have the sit down and have those conversations with your families ahead of time before, like Andy said, that crisis hits. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Aaron Starrett. I'm a financial strategist. So I assist families building financial strategies. I specialize in estate planning and retirement planning. So I have worked over the years just assisting families get ready for that next step, that retirement step. And it's never too early to start planning that. So I do deal with a wide range of individuals from 18 clear up to retirement age. So again, it's one of those things where we want to avoid those crisis situations. So the last thing you want is taking your life savings and finding out that we're in a process now where we may lose it. So that's kind of where I come in and show you how those strategies fit and how they fit each individual without taking a cookie cutter approach to each person. So that's kind of where I'm at. Perfect.
Hi, good morning. I'm Stephanie Keller. I'm an attorney at Johnson Lane and Hughes. It's in Knoxville. I've been practicing for about 3 years, and it's a general practice firm. And throughout the years, I've realized I enjoy estate planning and helping people prepare just for the next steps, I feel like meeting with people has been really rewarding to help them prepare. And then I've also just personally been on the other side where there's family members who need that help, and just feeling that connection of wanting to help the family members go through the process of helping a parent or an aunt or uncle, and just doing my best to do my part. So that's me.
Perfect. We'll actually start with you for the first question.
Okay.
So just to kind of start with the overall foundation of things. So obviously a lot of people know that we should have these documents in place.
Uh-huh.
So like from your perspective and estate planning perspective, what are the most legal documents that every older adult should have in place, and or why are they so critical?
Okay. So I would like to break these out as documents that you need and that will operate before you die, and that documents you need that will operate after you die. So before your death, it is really important to have power of attorney documents. I'm sure everyone's heard of these. Basically, you're naming someone to act on your behalf. And we'll go into those later, but there's two types. There is a healthcare power of attorney, so you could name someone that you feel like you can trust to make decisions on your behalf regarding your health. And then there's a statutory or basically financial power of attorney, and this you would name someone who you can trust and feel like they would make good decisions for your finances and basically anything besides your health. So those are important to have set up before you pass away. If you don't have those documents and you are incompetent, whether you have dementia or Alzheimer's, and you need someone to help you, you have to go through a court process that takes a longer amount of time and definitely more money. So power of attorney documents are fast and easy. 100%. When my kids turn 18, I'll be like, here's your birthday present. You can have some power of attorney documents. So every adult over 18 would recommend having these documents. After you pass away, what you want to set up now, you pass away and you need a will. In the will, you'll name beneficiaries and executor. So you'll decide who gets what and who's responsible to make sure whoever gets what. And then you can also have a trust. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but those are definitely the documents. Before you pass away, financial power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, and after you pass away, you'll need a will and maybe a trust. Okay.
And then I guess I have one follow-up question. You do not have to designate someone within inside of your family to be a power of attorney.
Correct.
It can be anyone.
Yes. Family works great if you feel like you could trust them. Some people don't have family, and so it can be neighbors or a friend. Just choose someone that you feel like you can trust.
Yep. Perfect. We'll go to Aaron next. So I guess from the financial perspective, what problems do you see that tend to happen when people delay planning or kind of just assume, we'll figure it out when the time comes?
I highly suggest not figuring out when the time comes. So they trying to do it that way, it makes it very difficult. It causes a great deal of financial strain for not only you, but your families. Down the road, it can be costly. You could be required to work longer than you wanted to in retirement. I've seen people that, they retire, next thing you know, they're working at Hy-Vee. because not because they want to, but they have no choice, or they've got to change their lifestyle expectations. So a lack of planning can put a great deal of financial stress in the cause of death, disability, long-term care. Without having those different things in place and those plans, those strategies already there, it is a stressful situation, and it is not just you. It's your kids, your grandkids, your spouse, that are going to have to end up paying in the long run, with that financial strain. So, ensuring that you have these documents in place, will ensure that you have options. And options is one of the biggest things that you're looking for. You don't ever want to have to get into a crisis, and the next thing you know, your options are limited. You have no choice but to do this. And maybe this isn't kind of your cup of tea. That's not what you want to do. So whether it's in-home care or out-of-home care, you've got to make sure that there's some sort of plan in place, and making sure that financial strain is not going to be passed on to another generation. And that's I think one of the critical parts is that conflict that you have with the kids and the grandkids and the families, and nobody wants that. So you want to make sure that your beneficiaries are set. Do an annual review, at least an annual review. Who are your beneficiaries? I have come down to the point to where I've seen people that have life insurance and their ex-spouse is the beneficiary. I don't care what your will says. It doesn't matter. That beneficiary will get those funds. Okay, it's legal. They have to get them. So make sure they're updated. So somebody is getting the funds that you want to get them. Ultimately, you're mitigating risk by having it plan in place. You are alleviating the financial stress and making sure that your long-term goals are going to be hit. So that's the big area is preserving your options of mitigating that risk down the road.
Yep. Perfect. And then we'll go to Amy. So, Amy, in your work with families during like serious illnesses or like just overall end of life situations, what have you seen happen when someone does not have their wishes or legal documents clearly established ahead of time?
Well, generally, we see people who lose mental capacity quickly. There are some disease processes like Parkinson's and dementia where people lose those capacities slowly. But those are also really important to have powers of attorney. But often what we see is if there's a stroke or a heart attack or a sudden medical event, no one has their medical power of attorney completed. And so then the decision turns to the family, and they can have some guilt about their decision making if those powers of attorney aren't already done. It can cause confusion. There could cause rifts between different family members that have different ideas about what your care looks like. So it is so important to be able to have those documents, not only have them completed, but then have the conversations with that substitute decision maker to say, this is what I want versus this is what I don't want. Everybody is different, and most of the time, if somebody puts their care into your hands and you haven't had those conversations, the care is going to look a lot more aggressive than what it would look like if you were making those decisions for yourself. So I'm all of my family's power of attorney as a medical social worker, right? So I keep those in my glove box because I know if they go to the hospital, then my car is going to take me there, and I don't want to carry those documents in my purse. So I know that for my dad, I need to give him 3 days on life support. That is the rule. My mother, if I find her passed in the garden, then that is a godsend, and I should say a prayer for her. So it is important to have these conversations to know what that care looks like. And so as the child, as the decision maker, when you're making that decision, you don't have that burden of guilt on you for a long time. Is this what mom would want? Or I can't pull the plug. So we're going to do all of these extra interventions, and then it just gets confusing. Same thing with code status. Code status is something that we talk about quite a bit, the full code versus do not resuscitate. I work in hospice and palliative care. So normally in those, you have a terminal illness. And we do a lot of education with the families too, when they have to decide what those code statuses are, to say, CPR is not what it looks like on TV, right? We just don't do a couple chest compressions and then the ambulance zooms in and everything is fine. But if you're having problems breathing, if you're having non-curable cancer, then, you don't want to, most people don't want to have CPR done. They want to have this beautiful natural death with their families holding their hands, right? And so that's why it's important to have those conversations, because if you don't, then the guilt of a child or the guilt of a loved one making those decisions will push it harder than a lot of times people want them pushed for themselves.
I don't know if it's just me or if you guys feel it as well, but obviously she's gone through the process, and to me, you can kind of feel like a sense of peace knowing like she knows exactly the plan and what's going to happen, or what could happen, and like what to do if the situation does ever arise. So like I feel like there's a sense of peace there. And just to kind of summarize, I guess, what we've been talking about just with this first couple questions is like, there is a real cost of waiting, not just like financially, but it can affect things emotionally for people, and just relationally as well. So it's just nice to have the documents kind of in place. So to go back to Stephanie, just to talk about, to kind of dig into a little bit more definitions and things like that. So obviously people will hear the terms wills, trusts, and we've already talked through power of attorney and stuff like that. I guess, is there anything else that you would like to kind of expand on or go a little bit more in depth about any of those items?
Yeah. Sorry. I think we're all on the same wavelength, and I like that. There's things that I've said, like have good conversations, so the people that you name in these documents aren't flying blind, Okay. So I want to go a little bit more in depth. So think of, Amy was just talking about like the healthcare power of attorney, where someone is going to make decisions on your behalf regarding your health. That document operates when you are unable to make the decisions, whether you have dementia or unable, or you get in a car accident and a doctor thinks they, either, you are asleep in a coma, cannot wake up, or your mental capacity is not there. If a doctor can talk to you, you get to make the decisions. Okay. And then as a part of that document, usually you have, can everyone hear me okay? Okay. But usually you have something called a living will. And Amy kind of talked about that it gives your like end of life decisions, I don't have the exact wording on the top of my head, but basically if a medical provider finds that you are, have some terminal disease, or you are in a state where you're not going to wake up, you would not like to have beyond life support or things like that. That's very common that people don't want that. And so I also like to say, when you've signed that document, you're making that decision then. So if it comes to the person, your agent, who you name as to make those decisions for you, they don't have the burden of making that decision and feeling that guilt. So I think that's huge. Okay. Sorry, financial power of attorney. This is about the finances. The difference between the financial and the healthcare, you decide if you can decide. You decide unless you can't medically. The financial, you can still be competent and make your own decisions, but your agent, who you name, can help you. So let's say, you just need your son to talk to your financial advisor, and you give that financial advisor this, statutory financial power of attorney, and you can be with it, but your son can talk to the financial planner. I have seen cases also, let's say that you're unable to make decisions for yourself, and you need to go to a care center. You don't have that financial power of attorney in place, and your family needs to talk to Medicare, Social Security, the care center, and they say, we can't do anything until you have a conservatorship in place. So then that person goes to an attorney, and we have to go to a court and ask for the court to set up a conservatorship so they can make those decisions for you. It's so much more expensive, and it takes a long time, and you need help when you need help. And it's harder to wait a month or 2 months to get that help. Okay. Okay. So those are the documents before death, power of attorney that operate before you die. Once you pass away, those documents are done. They do not operate. Okay. So after you pass away, again, we talked about you need a will. In the will, you'll name beneficiaries. Those can be your family, friends, charitable organizations. You get to decide. If you don't have a will, guess who decides? The legislature. A lot of times we don't want the legislature to make our decisions. Sorry, it's a long thing. Okay.
It's good.
So there are workarounds. If your assets are over $50,000, or if you have real estate and you have a will, you're going to name an executor, and they're going to take it to an attorney, and they will start probate. They will open an estate, and the court oversees your will to make sure your executor's doing everything they're supposed to do, giving your assets to the people they're supposed to be giving the assets to. They're paying your debts, and a court will oversee that process. Depending on your assets and everything, I feel really good if we close out an estate in a year. I feel like, sweet, we did that fast. I've had one that was 2.5 years long. So it just depends on the situation. I'm sorry, I'm going to try and wrap this up quickly. And you've probably heard about trusts, that name. With the trust, you create a trust through an attorney, and you fund the trust. You give all of your assets to the trust. So the trust owns your assets. Technically, you don't own your assets. The trust does, but you're the trustee and you control those assets. So the important part is making sure all your assets, with some exceptions, are owned by the trust. If you forget one, an attorney will make a trust, and they'll make a will, a pour over will. So in case anything is not in the trust, it will be distributed through the will. So depending on the circumstance, you're definitely going to want a will. You may want a trust also. A trust is administered outside of the court process. It's faster. A will is going to be less expensive up front. more expensive on the back end to go through the court. A trust is going to be more expensive on the front end and very likely less expensive on the back end. I'm saying back end after you pass away. Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Sorry.
And then to give one example for real estate side of things. So my grandparents passed away. They had their house, which was in Winterset, inside of a trust. My dad was named as the trustee, so it was himself and then 3 other siblings. Long story short, everybody agreed, got along, which made things much easier and smoother. So basically, they were all able to have conversations with each other, and it was able to avoid probate, and so everything was able to move a lot quicker. So that's just
Less than a year.
yes, much less than a year. Yes, so just an example there, I guess. Yeah, to go to Aaron. So from the financial side, financial advisory side. So how do beneficiary decisions and just overall financial planning like choices need to align with someone's legal documents, kind of like what we talked about, to help avoid unintended consequences later?
So I'm hoping everyone is seeing an underlying theme here with what we're saying, and that is communication. Okay, communication is critical personally, professionally. After 20 years of marriage, I've learned that the words "yes, dear" are the best communication tool that I have. But you need to be able to communicate your wishes and things with your family. More importantly, it's critical that somebody like me as a financial advisor and a financial strategist can communicate with your lawyer to ensure that your documents are set up the right way. I need to be able to have a conversation with your estate planning lawyer. Your estate planning lawyer needs to be able to have a conversation with me. And generally the third trifecta on that is your CPA. We need to be able to have these conversations and then have conversations within the palliative care, because most financial assets are beneficiary based, which means your retirement accounts, if you have income annuities or whatever, your investment accounts, life insurance, things like that, they are all beneficiary based, which means that regardless of what your will says, your beneficiaries are going to get paid out. And if those aren't jiving between your estate planning documentation, your will, and what your financial things are saying, you're going to create a conflict. Okay. And when that conflict happens, you got to understand that your assets in your estate are now going to get burned up in lawyer fees. They're going to get burned up in this fight now, this conflict that you're going to have with your family members that are left behind. It needs to be very clear and concise on, these are my wishes and these are what I want done with my assets, while I'm alive. If I'm mentally incoherent and I need you to make, somebody to make those decisions with a durable power of attorney, they know what's being done. Trusts are a great example of how to take care of things financially. They're not for everybody, but a lot of people will think, well, I don't make enough money, I don't have an estate. It's not true. We all have estates. Problem is, you don't have an estate until you die. Now you have an estate. So now the thing that you want to ensure is that you've got that communication, you've got your beneficiaries set, review those documents. Make sure that your lawyer has those documents and they have permission to speak to your financial person. Your financial person has permission to speak to your lawyer. Make sure your power of attorney has permission. If somebody calls me up and they say, I'm so-and-so's son, I don't care. I don't care who you are. You could be the president of the United States. I'm still not talking to you about that person's account. Because I have a fiduciary responsibility for confidentiality. So, again, that communication is critical. When you have the account structures, transfers on death, those sorts of documentation, you have to make sure they're all working together as one strategy Because if you have different arms and they're not communicating, things are going to fall apart really quick. But here's the problem. It's not your problem. Either you're incapacitated or you're gone. It's now your family's problem. And that's the last thing anybody wants to leave behind. I just lost my father last year. And luckily he had all the documents in place. My brother lives in Los Angeles, and he called me up when Dad died. And he said, "You're the financial guy. You deal with Dad's crap." So that was fun. So again, that communication piece is critical. And like Amy was saying, is making sure you have those documents in place, making sure that they're both communicated and written out very clearly. Don't get a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo in there. If you can't read it and understand it, nobody else is going to either. Okay. So again, communication is the big piece. I hope everyone's taking away from that.
Yep. And then, that's really good. Amy, from the healthcare side of things, what does the conversation actually look like? So if someone were to come to you, something happened, and now they're in crisis mode and they don't have these documents in place, whether it's healthcare power of attorney or those items, what does that conversation actually look like with you?
Well, if you have a spouse, then it's a lot cleaner, right? Because in the state of Iowa, if you can't make your own decisions, then the next person that is able to make those decisions goes to the spouse. So that makes it a little bit easier. But a lot of these families now have really complicated systems in it. So there's a second or third wife, there's stepchildren, there's real children. Everybody has different opinions. And so that's when it becomes really muddy. And that's when care can be delayed. So if we're having to pull together all of the family members and to sit down and to decide until we can establish a guardianship or conservatorship, sometimes we have to get in the ethics board of the hospital to be able to make those decisions. So we always want to do the best we can to help people move quickly through the system to be able to get them the help that they need. But it's not always an option. And in healthcare, we love to talk about the out-of-state daughter. She is our token person that is very involved, has a lot of guilt that she is not here and able to see patients and their decline, and has very strong opinions on what care should look like, but she is not witness to the care. I'm sorry that we say that all the time, but that is a real fact. And so she wants all of these aggressive treatments done. Why haven't we done this? She gets on Google. We should be doing these things. And it just really complicates things. But when people are bedside and they've had the conversation, it's really great because then you already know what mom wants. That power of attorney also doesn't have to sign the form. They don't even have to know that they're the power of attorney. And so you might call them up and say, "Hi, Stephanie, your mom is in the hospital and you've been listed as her power of attorney and she can't make decisions. What should we do?" And you haven't had those conversations with her. So just because you designate somebody as a power of attorney, it really does mean that you need to sit down and have those hard conversations. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we also have I just like to pick on daughters because I'm one of them and I'm pushy and I'm bossy when it comes to care of my loved ones. But they'll come in and say, the daughter will come in and say, "Well, I'm my mom's power of attorney." Well, your mom still has full capacity to be able to make her own decisions. That's great that she is prepared for the future, but as long as she can make her decisions, then she gets to make them. And we have a lot of family members that disagree with the parents' decisions, and self-determination is a tricky wicket. So if you're able to make decisions, whether it's good for you or not, your healthcare team is going to stand by those decisions. So sometimes I hear that as a piece that I don't want to make that person my healthcare power of attorney because I don't want them to feel like they have the control to take over my healthcare, which is a very real thing that happens every single day. I just want you to know that healthcare power of attorneys don't start until a physician has deemed you unable to make your healthcare decisions. There's also, I'm going to step on your toes, I'm so sorry. There's also some really old forms floating out there with financial power of attorneys, because there are blanket documents from the Iowa Bar Association. And some of the old power of attorneys will say on the back, you have 3 options to choose from. Either that financial power of attorney becomes effective immediately, becomes effective on a written date, which never made sense to me, or becomes effective by written certification that you're no longer able to manage your finances. A lot of people don't know that it's back there. So if you do have a really old financial power of attorney, take a look at that document, because I might want to give my daughter my power of attorney for finances at some point, but I certainly don't want to give them to her now. And so really take a look at that when you're making your financial power of attorney decisions. Really take a look if you're going to use those easy forms. Make sure that you always contact an attorney when you're looking at your financial power of attorneys, because you can give somebody a lot of permission really quickly that you didn't know that they had access to. There was another point I was going to make. One other thing is I just wanted to show, I'm a social worker. I love forms, right? I always come with forms. How many people have seen this form? This is an iPost form. This is something that we use in healthcare. It has to be this shade, and this is the form that goes on the side of your fridge. This is something that you complete with your physician. It is a live doctor's order, and it talks about code status. It talks about CPR, medical interventions, whether you want artificial nutrition or not, if you have a power of attorney and who that is. So this doesn't take the place of a power of attorney, but then it also talks about code status. Do you want CPR? Do you not want CPR? So this is a legal document that is completed by your physician in the state of Iowa. When the paramedics come to your home, they are trained to look for this form on the side of the fridge in this exact color, and this follows you. So your doctor will have this in your chart. You should, if an ambulance is called, they will grab this form off the side of your fridge and take it with you to the hospital. This form lives with you. Can you make copies of this form? Absolutely. It's still valid. We use this form a lot, but that's what the medical staff is trained to look for, this color and at that location. And so if it gives you, if you want to be resuscitated or not, whether you want comfort measures, limited interventions, or full treatment, again, tube feeding, and then who is the people that are allowed to make decisions for you. Oh, the last thing I forgot is on a power of attorney, you can choose to make 2 people have equal rights as your power of attorney. I have 2 children. I don't want to pick which one makes those choices. And that is typically a nightmare for people in healthcare, because they have to come together at a consensus and decide. And so that can be really difficult when you're talking about mom, right? Everybody has a different relationship with mom. Everybody is involved with mom's care separately. And so when we see Peggy and Susie, the word "and" together, they have to make those decisions. That really complicates things. So if it's really, really from the bottom of my heart, please, as someone who cares for people, please always choose one person. And then there's an alternate, right? So if Peggy's not available, then you call Susie. You can alter the, I'm so sorry. I keep talking about this. You can also alter your power of attorney too, to say Peggy and or Susie. So whoever is available and is willing can make those decisions, but they don't have to come together at the same time. So think about that when you're doing your power of attorney and you're working with your attorney, just to make sure that you know who you want that person to be.
Yeah, perfect. Yep, that's good. Yep. So next we'll go into like, I'll actually go to Aaron next and just kind of talk about just kind of what can happen inside of families, conversations, stress, and how things could go if these things kind of are not in place. So from your perspective, Aaron, like when you're having conversations with families and they have, don't really have clear plans or a strategy in place or like outdated documents, things like that. How do you see those, like, how do you have those conversations with those families to help them essentially, navigate the strategy to help mitigate the stress and risk there?
Sure, yeah, because I'm usually the guy that come in and yell at. But it gets old fidgety when it comes to money. So, yeah, outdated documents. If I've had a lot of people that tell me, well, I have a guy, or I have something in place, or anything else. If you have a health issue and you don't like the first answer, what do you do? Get a second opinion. I would highly advise doing that. Okay. Now, if you have a guy that you've been with for 50 years or 30 years or whatever, and he's always done right by you, by all means, that's fine. But I've had clients, I had a client actually come in and they had a life insurance document. They said, oh, yeah, I don't want to do anything with this. I brought it just so you could see it, blah, blah, blah. It's accumulating cash and all this stuff. Her policy had expired 3 years ago. There was no cash value. There was no investment account. It was a 15-year term policy, and it had been 18 years since she'd gotten it. Now, who do you think she yelled at? I'll give you two guesses, and your first guess doesn't count. Okay. So, yeah, and I'm not the one that wrote it, so don't think that. So, but you've got to make sure that what your financial strategy is, I see a lot of people with financial products, but they don't have a plan in place. And there is a difference. When you get outdated documents, I've seen documents from the 50s. I've seen documents from the 80s, and those are outdated. Okay. Documents from the year 2000, they're outdated. Okay. You need to ensure that they are what you think they are. They weren't something that was sold to you. Okay. I don't sell anything. I provide a service to educate people on financial products. I do use financial products to get you to your strategy, but it's more about the education piece. I want people to ensure that their money's going the right way and where it's supposed to go. Again, I beat it into people all the time. Check your beneficiaries. That is absolutely critical. If, again, I've seen it multiple times where the ex-spouse is the beneficiary on a life insurance policy, or they have a joint long-term care policy. Nay, don't do that. That's a bad idea. You want to make sure that your money's going to go where you want it to go, because in the long run, what's going to happen is you're going to have conflict there where, as a financial expert, I have no choice but abide by the document that I have. If your beneficiary says it goes to Timmy and you don't want Timmy to have it, that's too bad. I'm giving it to Timmy. I have a legal obligation. I have to do that. But if your will says, well, we're going to give it to Susie, there's nothing I can do about that. I don't care what your will says. I care about the legal document that I have as your beneficiary, your financial assets. So you've got to make sure that any joint accounts that you have, joint ownerships, any of those accounts, those documents are properly have the proper beneficiaries. Any financial account that you have, generally 90% of the time, has a beneficiary of some sort. And how are they structured? If you pass, does your spouse get a payout, a portion? How does it work? Is it structured the way you think? Because I have so many people that will come to me and go, "Oh, this is what this does." No, it isn't. That is not even close to what it does. Sometimes they're right. So, they come to me and say, well, that's what it does. Yes, they do. But, outdated documents, we sit on things that think, if so-and-so told me this is what's going to happen, I would get a second opinion, unless it's very clear. If you've got a life insurance policy that says $250,000, 10-year term, and that's what it is, pretty cut and dry. I don't need you to bring that to me and say, is this a 10-year term policy? Because it says it is. But make sure your documents are what you know that they're supposed to be. Even though they're a little bit older, I've seen companies that somebody passes away, they have a life insurance policy. It's so old now, and I'm going to be honest, my father was one of them. It took me 4 days just to figure out who even owned his life insurance policy because it was through his retirement at work, part of his pension plan and everything else. And I had to make, I would say I probably made 20 phone calls because I would call the company he worked for. They're like, we don't know. I have a document that's 25, 30 years old. I called them, but we don't know. They'd sold it off to somebody else. And then whoever they sold it off to had sold it off to somebody else. And so I'm going to estimate between 15 to 20 phone calls is what it took me to find an $8,000 life insurance policy. I almost got to the point to where I didn't care about the $8,000 life insurance policy because it was too much of a hassle, but the documentation that my dad had was almost 3 decades old. So, and it wasn't correct. But, that's the thing is keep the stress off your family. They've lost a loved one already. That's stressful enough. Don't give them the added stress of trying to figure out what you wanted to happen. Again, that communication is critical to make sure things are updated. And they're updated not only with your financial advisor, but your CPA and people like Stephanie, that your what do you do? Estate planning lawyers. I just total brain fade there for a second. But you're a estate planning lawyer, Again, we got to make sure we communicate and everything. So, Amy needs to be able to call me and say, hey, so-and-so just made some changes here. Do we need to take a look at their accounts? I said, ooh, yeah, we probably should. So now I'm going to get the call and say, hey, I heard you updated. Maybe stop into my office and let's update your financial documents as well. So.
Perfect. Yep. And then we'll go to Stephanie next. Kind of the same thought process there. I guess, what would you say are kind of the more common, just from your perspective, like legal type issues or family disputes that kind of arise after someone passes away when the proper planning / documents aren't in place?
I'm trying to keep this as vague as possible, but here's an interesting story for you. So there was a couple. He had 2 kids from a previous marriage. This couple gets married. She has health issues. So she says, I'm going to die before you. I want all the assets in your name only. So all their assets are in the husband's name only. They didn't talk to an attorney. An attorney would have told them to do something different. So the assets are in his name only. And he passes away suddenly from a disease, cancer. And so she says, hey, what do I need to do? And so we look over, there's no will. So guess who gets to decide who gets what? The legislature. So what the legislature says, the wife gets half, and then the kids from a previous marriage, the biological kids, they share the other half. A lot of what he had was a retirement. There were named beneficiaries. It was his wife. So his wife got money, which was great. But they had a home, and his name was the only name on the deed. So that's a probate asset. And so the home was paid off. She worked. She helped pay off the home. Now it's a probate asset. She gets half the value of the home, and the children from the previous marriage get the other half. They're estranged. The current wife does not know these estranged children. She helped pay for the home. Now the home needs to be sold, and she needs to give the kids half the value. Nightmare. She's going through this, and she's also just lost her husband. Horrible. You're going through a lot. It was a bad decision. And she knew it was her fault. She's like, I made this mess. Yes, you did. So there's a way. She decided to use some of the money she got from the 401k to just give the kids a lump sum. So she spent a good chunk of money having a family settlement agreement. But that's something that could have been avoided by a consultation with a lawyer for a few $100s, and some legal work, maybe $1,000, maybe even $2,000, who knows? So one situation, maybe you can say, oh, that's not me. We're not going to do that. Maybe there's a different situation you don't know you're in that a lawyer could see and say, oh, there's going to be a problem there. Another situation, a couple, they only had kids between themselves. They're married. She does have a will. But she received a portion, like a plot of land from an inheritance, and her name is the only name on the land. And so she passes away, and we still need to open an estate to get her name off the deed and put it in her husband's name, because she gave everything in the will to her husband. But you need to transfer that land from her name to her husband's name. If his name would have been on the deed and they would have been joint tenants, easy $80 affidavit, goes to the husband. But we need to open an estate because her name was the only name. So again, a quick conversation with an attorney, hey, here's the issues, this is what we think you should do, would alleviate problems when you're going through a grieving process. So, yeah, some sad stories.
Nope, it's good. High level, I always like to say the hard conversations are healthy conversations. So if if you have kids, family members, people that that are going to 100% be involved in something, have the conversations early. Even if they're difficult to have, it's going to help every single person in the long run. So I guess next we'll just kind of go to just taking the first step without feeling kind of overwhelmed. So obviously everybody's probably in a little bit different situation here today. And just to keep these answers a little bit more brief, so we'll start with Aaron. For if you just want to do a quick 1 to 5 sentences or whatever, for someone who knows they need to get organized but feels overwhelmed, what is just one manageable first step that they could take financially? High level.
Inventory. Take inventory. What do you have? Where are the documents? It can be overwhelming. It can. Finances are overwhelming. I have so many people come to me like, I don't know where to begin. I don't know what to do. Here's a folder, and it's like this thick. Take inventory of what you've got, and then seek somebody that can assist you. Okay, a financial expert. Okay, if you go to estate planning and you need estate planning done for a lawyer, you're not going to have your business lawyer write up the documentation. Okay. Doing your own research online, that's great up to an extent. Okay. Please do not take it as gospel truths. Take it to somebody that has the education, the licensing, and has your best interests in mind that you feel comfortable developing that relationship with. But taking inventory is probably the biggest thing. You're not looking for perfection. Okay? You're not looking for perfection. You're not going to have all the answers. You're looking for progress. That's a big thing, is progress. Those little steps that you take are going to eventually become those big decisions.
Perfect. We'll go to Amy next. Same thing, high level. How can people begin approaching these conversations with their family members in a less like fearful way, and just be able to just share with each other open and transparently?
Sure. I just want to parrot what Aaron said really quick is when I walk into a home and they hand me a binder with all of their stuff in it, that makes me so thrilled.
The grapes of wrath.
I love those binders because in it will have their long-term care insurance information. It'll have life insurance information. It will have their power of attorneys in there. It will have all of their bank accounts where all of their money lives. That's a great tool for me as a daughter and a granddaughter. And it's also a great tool for anybody who's trying to set it up, because if I suddenly disappear, then I actually have a Google Doc with all of that stuff on it that my husband has access to. So I have it set up for myself, but it also, I know where that is for my loved ones too. So if I have to go and make an emergent decision for them, I'm going to go to that binder and say, all right, I don't remember if their long-term care insurance policy is up to date. I don't remember where their life insurance policy is. Have they already pre-planned for their funeral home? Because a lot of times somebody dies and we are helping them decide the funeral home. And I've already had the conversation with mom 100 times where her funeral is going to be and how it's prepaid and how it matches her husband's. And then the children sweep in and they set it up with their buddy down the street at a different funeral home. So all of those stuff should be wrapped up into one beautiful document. As far as difficult conversations, I'm going to talk faster because there are like extensive living wills out there. Prepare for Your Care is a great living will that's online and it's free. And it allows you to sit down and it gives you the conversations to have with your loved ones. If this happens, then I want this. If this happens, then I want this. I do want antibiotics at end of life. I don't want antibiotics at end of life. We have a strong history of Alzheimer's in my family. And so if I have on Alzheimer's and I don't know who I am and I don't know who my family is, please don't treat my UTIs. I don't need to stay living like that forever. So really identifying those things. But right now I'm a young mom, and if I'm in a car accident, I want everything done. If I have cancer, I will fight to the end of the earth to be able to stay with my children for as long as possible. So it really just depends person to person. So make sure that you're sitting down with the person you identify as your caregiver to have those really in-depth conversations.
Perfect. And then we'll end with Stephanie. Just any, like if you could leave some, like the attendees here with just one final piece of encouragement, advice, just to kind of help plan ahead. Do you have any final thoughts / 2 cents?
Yeah, I would reiterate about having the financial power of attorney documents, the healthcare power of attorney documents, and a will. This is something an estate planning attorney does regularly. If you have those documents, maybe check back to see how old they are. Laws change, kind of standards in the practice change. I swear lawyers are not horrible people that just want to steal money. I'm sure there's some out there. But we want to make sure that your documents are going to do what you want them to do. And if you have some extra documents, like Amy said, about your healthcare, they're consistent across the board. So if you're naming, someone to make decisions for you in the document I prepare for you, it's the same in the document you fill out for Amy. So documents are there and they're consistent and people know where they are. And you've had great conversations.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Can you give them a round of applause, please? Really try to keep these seminars very practical. So I really hope everyone took at least one thing away from today that you can go back and actually put something into place if you don't have it, or just hopefully that you learned something new today. Just a quick wrap up. So next month is going to be our It's in July, first Thursday in July, which I believe is the 3rd. We're going over protecting yourself from scams and financial fraud. So that'll be next month. It's going to be an awesome panel. And it'll be very informative. Lastly, I would encourage you to fill out your feedback forms. We look at all of them, turn them into Nancy. If you have a name tag, turn those in together with Nancy as well. And other than that, have a good rest of the day. Thanks for coming.